got a full send full. You know, like when you can tell when someone's not fully committing to the role.
Yes. Welcome to Hefner and Perler.
Happy, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Ooh. If you're listening, there's nothing happening right now. Hi, Marston.
What's up? What's
How's it
up?
going? Welcome to episode 1 of Hefner and Perler.
Hefner and Perler. This is Hefner. This is Hefner. What if we say, like, introduce ourselves? This is Hefner.
And this is Perler. And together, we're...
Hefner.
And Perler!
uh,
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. My dad was Hugh Hefner.
What?
Did you know that? My dad was Hugh Hefner, and I had a crazy upbringing.
Wait. Really?
Yeah, really.
What was that like?
It was wild. Um,
Were you
so
just... every night you went to bed with a different bunny?
every day,
Did they read you
every
bedtime
day,
stories?
yeah. But
Aww.
yeah, no. This is Hefner and Perler, and we are here.
Yeah.
We just did an entire recording of whatever is incredible.
It was
We did
great.
like an hour recording of just prime time content, and
We
and
lost it all.
yeah, I did. I lost it all.
You know what? That's okay though. For me, I think you know what they say. The second time is, oh no, third time is a charm. Okay,
They
maybe we
say
have
that
to.
third time's a charm. Yeah,
Okay, I think if we lose this one, then the next time we're really gonna get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That means that this one's gonna be like shit, but then the one after this is gonna be just fucking.
Wild. Yeah.
It's gonna be the best shit we've ever done.
I do want to talk about. You had a very, very interesting childhood. You
Yeah.
grew up in the Playboy Mansion. And for those that don't know, that is where wild, sexy, and crazy things happen.
Yeah.
Is that what it was like growing up? Was there always just sex, drugs, and rock and roll happening?
There was a lot of sex, a lot of drugs, and quite a bit of hardcore rock and roll.
All right.
Yeah. Um, no, I mean it was totally different than what you experienced growing up, which is really interesting to me
All right.
because you know um, I never grew up in a quote unquote average American experience. I had like when I was a kid we would hang out with other kids who lived in mansions and then we'd go over to their mansions and all of the
Mm.
kids with mansions would all run around the front yard and with their nannies, and we all had nannies, and they were all like from Ecuador, Guatemala, and we all loved them very much. And they were kind of like a second mother to us.
Mm.
And it's so strange how the culture's the same. Like how everybody imagines like a nuclear family in a suburban white picket fence to be like everybody understands that like
Yeah.
everybody's kind of the same in that world. It was very much similar where all these really powerful families were like, they all had the nannies, they all had the giant
Mm.
homes. Nobody knew their neighbors. We
Did you
didn't really
guys
know each other's
did you guys ever
parents.
look at each other and be like, we're not normal. We're not like the other kids of America. Did you realize that at a young age, or were you like so enamored in your world that you didn't even think about it?
Didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
What was your life like? Like think about that. Like your life is peculiar because you grew up in a different, totally different world than me.
Different world than you for sure. It would probably be more close to the white picket fence kind of thing. I grew up on a block where every house had a kid.
Yeah.
So summers were wild. We would shut down the block and have
Wow.
block parties. It was amazing. I lived like the '80s, like Steven Spielberg kind of film childhood. We had a whack pack of kids that lived on
Mm,
that street, and we would just go out on adventures and do fun things. And it
I
was
love that.
it was great. I had such an amazing childhood growing up there. Very different, I'd imagine, than
Did
your
you know your
experience, but
neighbors? Did you know your neighbors?
all of them, all of them had kids, and we're all the same age. And
Yeah.
then our siblings were all the same age. So it was like the weirdest like coincidence, and it was so perfect. It was an amazing childhood. I'm curious though, like a lot of people would imagine living in the Playboy Mansion. It's just always like girls walking around parties. Was it always like that, or were there down times?
There were down times. There were down times. I don't think it was ever really like that, but there
Hmm.
was like Sunday fun in the sun, which where everybody would, um, all the hot girls would come and hang around by the pool, and we would play backgammon. My dad was a big backgammon fellow. He taught me how to play backgammon, and then we'd all play that game, which I just mentioned, with his friends, and there'd be bunnies hopping around, and you know that was it.
Hmm. Did you realize at a young
But that
age?
that sounds different to you than it does to me, because to me
Yeah.
that's like normal, not normal, but to me that's ordinary. But for you, that's not your average Sunday.
No, my
It's just
average
hard.
Sunday was very
What's
different.
interests me about this, yeah, what interests me about it is just realizing that it's not your average Sunday, and it was my average Sunday, and then your average Sunday. Like, what did your average Sunday look like as a family unit?
We would like go out and do fun activities. We'd go like seasonal things like a pumpkin picking, apple picking kind of thing when we were
Nice.
little. We didn't have
Yeah.
beautiful naked women running around our backyard. Unfortunately, I would have loved that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you ever like peek out and see what was happening? Did you ever sneak into the Sunday festivities
I was there. I was doing the backgammon stuff when I was an adult, but when I
when you
was
were
a
little
kid,
though?
I
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. When I was little, I would. So we had a pool, and we were all swimming in the pool, me and my friends, and um, we would play games like hide and go seek, tag, and stuff, and
Mm.
so we're swimming, and somebody's chasing me. I'm a very fast swimmer. I told my friends I was a junior Olympic. Uh, you know, uh, I told my friends that I was a junior Olympic swimmer.
Mm.
Yeah,
Were you?
and no,
Oh,
and but they believed me.
why not?
And yeah, I mean that says something about my abilities.
Yeah.
And so and then I had this strategy where I swam like this, because most people think swimming like that.
Mm.
I knew that my strongest arm was my right arm,
Okay.
and so I just did that, whooped
What about
everyone.
this?
That's not the optimal way. People do that if like they're like restricted, like in competition to do
Mm.
this. But if
Okay.
everybody could go as fast as possibly can, people think you do this, but you actually do this.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I did that, and I was going, 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 and I go into the grotto, which
Mm.
what the grotto is.
Yeah.
And there was my dad's old friend, like maybe 45 years old, 50-year-old man, and he
Mm.
was just getting a blowjob.
Ooh.
Yeah, and he was just getting a blowjob, right? And then I looked at it, and I think he probably looked at me, and then I went right back under the water, and I swam back out of it, and then I told my mom about it, and he
Mm.
said that guy's a creep.
Mm.
Um,
So did you when you were
and
young?
she
Did
was a
you?
young lady. She was a young lady. She was pretty, probably pretty fine.
I'd hope so. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So you were exposed to a lot of that very young.
yeah,
Do you think that that helped? Not help, but it defined your sexuality in any way at such a young age, being exposed to that.
yeah.
Mm. Tell me about it.
Well, the Mahone has told me that that sexuality has been shaped, my friend,
Mm.
through a hypersexual environment. I have no idea what it did to my sexual nature,
Mm.
but I'm sure that it did something. Just a very sexual environment for a little boy and grow up in such a just a really, you know. But
Did did your dad uh, care that you were exposed to that? Did he try to hide you from that? Did your mom try to like kind of push it away from you a little bit,
I
or
don't
was it
know.
just kind of like let it be? This is the his environment. This is gonna happen, kind of thing.
It just was. It just was. I think, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but
Okay.
um,
I
yeah,
respect that. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely an interesting child. Do you think like there were a lot of like people like especially when you're younger like oh his dad's Hugh Hefner like did a lot of people try to like surround themselves with you to like have a play date at the mansion?
yeah. I think so. It's hard to say. I didn't get the feeling that people were using me. I think I'm a really bad judge
Hmm.
of getting used though. Like people have hustled me. My dentist hustled me for like 10 grand,
Oh my
and
god.
he's not my dentist anymore.
I'd hope not. No.
But I mean, I feel like there are manipulators out in the world, don't you feel like? And
Yeah,
then,
there always will be, but I'd
yeah,
imagine if you're like a part of that kind of family where it's so well known, your dad's so well
yeah,
known, I'd
yeah,
imagine that it would happen more often
it
and
does
maybe
have.
like yeah. Do you and I don't know. How do you have you ever had experiences where like you had an epiphany that this person was just with you for nefarious reasons or as a friend or whatever?
Wow. No, that'd be
Hmm,
fucked up though.
that would be.
Yeah,
I'd imagine. Like did like I'm sure there are a lot of parents though that were very intrigued.
yeah,
Like I really want to pick my son up from the Hefner's house. Like get a sneak peek.
yeah. See, that's all the world that I didn't get to see because they weren't
Hmm.
telling me that stuff. I asked my friend that what was it like to uh, to have me at his school. What were people saying? Because
Hmm.
people didn't talk to me about this stuff.
Hmm.
So it's only later on that I can go like, what was that like?
Interesting. Do you
I
feel like
think he
you?
said that people were curious. People wanted to know what it was like. There was this mystique about the mansion, and
Yeah.
people wanted to get up there. I don't think I really knew that, but I
Hmm.
did. I think I might have used it to my advantage, where it's like the hot girl,
Hmm.
that girl that I had a huge crush on, and everybody knew she was just the hottest one there. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, do you want to hang out at my dad's house with you, me, and Mickey? And then she's like, of course, she says yes. So it was like my way of kind of like, please like me, hot girl.
Hmm.
Didn't work.
Interesting. Was there
Yeah.
ever a moment in your life when it clicked like I'm connected to a very important family and that at one point you told me that Succession was a very familiar show to you.
Yeah.
Did you ever when did that click for you that your family was very unique and
Is
powerful?
Succession not like? I mean, is it foreign to you? Like Succession when you look at it?
Yeah, very foreign. I mean, I
Really?
understand it like when I watched it, like I get what's going on, but I couldn't
Yeah.
relate to it in any way, like the way that
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. I kind of like it though, because there was like this dailymail.co.uk,
Hmm.
that site,
Yeah, sure.
and they called me the Hefner black sheep or something. Hugh
And why
Hefner is
would
the
they do
black
that?
sheep of the family.
Huh.
because they're labeling. I don't know. Makes it clickbait.
Hmm. Easy bait. Yeah, the Daily Mail.
They do clickbait,
They
right?
do
Like,
clickbait. That's like kind
yeah.
of what they're known for.
It's a
Um,
very striking image of me, though. I mean, it was
mm,
fetching.
Believable that you could be a black sheep.
A sexy, a very sexualized black sheep.
Yeah, that's so
Farm
interesting.
boys beware.
Yeah. Was it interesting? Like, what was it like having a dad who was so old? Like, he was
He
like,
was an
you know,
old boy. I
he was an
know.
old man.
It was
Like,
upsetting. I think
uh,
he had a stroke like when he was like 60 or something.
hmm,
Um, but like he wasn't like quick, man. Like if you watch the differences between my dad, like when he was like in his, like when he was like 30 years old, like he was a smart motherfucker,
snappy. Yeah.
snappy as fuck. And then you watch like the older interviews when he's like old as fuck, and he's
Hmm.
just like smiling, like yeah.
Do you think
I
he was
don't know.
tired
It's a
of it all
different. Yeah,
at that
maybe. I
age?
think he
I'd
might have been
imagine
over
like
it.
being the center of attention of Playboy for so many years, and then you get old, you're like,
Yeah,
you're just like, enough already.
he's
Give me a
over it.
break. I don't blame him at all. I
No,
mean,
fuck it. Just get out. But he
yeah.
never wanted to get out. He wanted to like stay in, right? Like
Well,
the girls next door and stuff.
it sounds like he loved his creation regardless, but he was just tired. That's
But
what it
then why
sounds
do
like.
the girls next door? Why do the I think you're right. I got the feeling that like he didn't enjoy it, but like he was still doing it.
Hmm.
It's just bizarre. You have this machine, this thing that's so big that maybe he just didn't know how to just like go on to a fucking island in the Bahamas and just like
Retire.
call it a day.
Yeah. That's so interesting. My experience with my dad was very busy. Busy guy, always working in the city.
Yeah.
He would commute from New Jersey to New York early in the morning, be on the train, grinding, grinding, grinding. He gave up his life to support his family. And it's a pretty amazing thing to watch. Sometimes it's sad to see like a person just get on the train every day, go to an office, come back, and just be completely exhausted. But somehow he had the energy to give us attention on the weekends and when he was at home and play with us and do all those great things. But I just don't get how people break down. Like, how do you not break down from like
I
being
know.
like it doesn't? It sounds like your dad and my dad. They keep going. They kept
That's what
going.
curious is me. It makes it curious as well. What's their motivation? I think my dad really loved his work. I know he just said that. Like,
Yeah.
I've read his
Likewise with my dad.
scrapbooks. Yeah, I've read his scrapbooks, and he said he'd never been happier in his life, and yet he was working like 12 hours a day in his bedroom, working on the magazine. Maybe they
Yeah.
fucking love it, right?
They
You said
do.
your dad liked it.
He does, and he still does. And
Yeah.
luckily now he works remotely. But and I ask him sometimes, I'm like, "You enjoy this? You like waking up at 4 in the morning and starting your grind?" And he's like, "Yeah, like it's his fun activity. Like he enjoys it so much, and he likes the people he works with, which is great." So
I think that's the genius of it is like for sure it's something that I always strive to do is like whatever people say is like really painful and awful, finding how to enjoy that thing, you know? That's
it's hard.
wonderful.
It's hard to do, but if you could figure it out and if you find something that you're so passionate about and you just keep going with it, that's awesome.
Yeah. I
That
think it
sounds
just
like
takes time.
it does, and it sounds like you discovered that with your writing.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's
it wasn't
beautiful.
always like that. But I got to go to the bathroom, so I will be RP.
Bathroom break. We're back. What were we talking about?
Something really cool which was like corporate America
Oh, dads.
and dads. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, but there's an interesting point. Oh, with writing. Yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So figuring out what you're passionate about and
Right.
going full force with it and
My
enjoying it.
dad did that. My dad literally said that in a fucking high school auditorium.
Hmm.
Um, I went to it with him to Chicago, and it was wild. It was so cool because Chicago's was his home, and that he went back to his fucking old high school,
Wow.
um, and he just sits in front of a audience, and you know, you don't know him, but he doesn't really say much in his old age, and he just like basically says like follow your dreams,
Hmm.
which sounds cliche as fuck unless like you're doing unless he I mean I think he actually did that. I think this was one of his dreams. And
So
that's
that.
just so wonderful to hear, in contrast to like do what's safe and, be a corporate fucking whatever.
Hmm.
He didn't do that.
He clearly rubbed off on you in that way. You have dedication with your writing. It's so amazing though the schedule that you set up with your writing. Like, can you explain that? Because I think it's pretty amazing.
Sure. Monday through Friday, 1.5 hours of reading and then 2 hours of writing. It's fun.
That's cool.
What about you? What's your how do you follow your passion?
I follow it through. I For me, my passion is just being able to be as free as possible. I value my time more than anything. Like I want my time to be spent doing whatever I want. If I want to be in bed, watching YouTube videos all day, great. If I want to spend it all day working and grinding, even better.
Yeah.
But I don't like stress myself out over like pursuing my passion so vigorously. To me, it's more of like less of my identity and more of just something I do.
You
It
know what kind
almost
of
in a hobby.
you know what kind of I think is really awesome is just imagining like having your money work for you. So you're
Mm,
just like fucking watching YouTube videos and like that like whatever systems you have in place is just like you don't have to worry. You can
yeah,
just do this forever if you wanted
yeah.
to.
No, it's a beautiful thing and something I think most people want to kind of get to. Definitely something I want
And
to
it
get
seems like
to.
society is going towards that too.
I think
It's
so.
inevitably.
I think so. I think we're moving in that direction, and I think that's ultimately good.
Yeah.
My passion, though, is I love doing anything like digital art. Like, I love creating visuals. I like
Mhm.
creating what I see appear and then bringing it to some sort of digital form.
Yeah.
There's no, like, the reason that I studied interior design in college, and the reason I did that is because there's nothing cooler than the idea of thinking something in your head, putting it to paper, and then seeing it in like reality. Like that's amazing to me. And now
Mhm.
like with the advent of like digital art, AI or whatever, achieving my imagination and showing it as accurately as possible, it's so much easier now. And I
Mhm.
that's my passion, just pumping that stuff out of my brain and then onto paper or onto the screen. Like that's
Mhm.
such a fulfilling thing to do. That's my
I
my thing that I love going towards.
Yeah, I never connected but now I see it. Your passion is visual because
Yeah.
you do interior design, you do your YouTube videos with Gigi,
Hmm.
and then you also do AI stuff. It's interesting. I
Yeah.
feel like, and research shows that the right brain, which is like an excellent creative part of the brain, is all visual. So you're probably very in touch with your creative self.
I definitely am. I mean, I have an auditory processing disorder, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. So, like growing up in school, the teacher would be talking at the front of the classroom. It would go in this ear and then out the other.
Yeah. I had that
So
too.
I always had to visualize what they were saying. So my visualization brain has been training itself since I was very little because that was the only way that I could understand things.
Hmm.
So I definitely think I'm very advanced in visualizing things. So like when I listen to music, I create the music video in my head.
Hmm.
Or if I like I smell something, I see it so beautifully and clearly. And yeah, it's the way I've operated just because of the way that I have that auditory processing disorder. I have to visualize. It's my crutch. I
Yeah.
have to.
That's one of the things that I always enjoy. That's one of the things that I enjoy, reaping the benefits of being your friend is just what a talented and unique and smart and individualistic thinker you are.
Hmm,
And it's just been really cool to watch your art
thank you.
and, you know, the way you work.
Yeah. let's talk a little bit about how we met. Um, you and I met. I don't even know how many years ago. Do you know?
Fortnite. I met Anna 3 years ago, and we were hanging out maybe 4.5 years, 4 years ago. Is around the same time, I think.
Sounds about right. We met
Yeah.
gaming. We met through a mutual friend,
Yeah.
and I think he kind of knew that we were similar in the back of his
He
mind.
didn't like that.
No,
I don't think so because he knew that he didn't want us. Anyways, we became friends. He didn't want us to become friends.
why would he introduce us if he didn't want us to become friends?
I don't think he thought that we would be friends, and then
Mm,
you know, I think he was kind of jealous about how much we got along. Um, but what's
maybe.
interesting is that I don't really know what you look like because what we're talking about is like this is the first time where we get to see each other like what we look like IRL in the real world
Mm,
because most of the way that we know each other is through Fortnite. I remember, and Fortnite, I think of you in terms of sound, which is like that
mm,
fucking dumb emote that you guys did. The wow, wow. Do you know
yeah,
which one I'm talking about? That
I don't, but
music.
there. I have an idea.
And then the
I have an
dog.
idea.
I think didn't you have a dog on your Fortnite character?
Yeah, yeah. I had a backpack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the dog on the backpack. So this is really like a totally new way that we are getting to meet each other, which is like not even yet physical world stuff. It's so funny because I was taught when I was growing up to not meet friends online because friends are people online are creepy and not to be trusted. And
yeah,
that's like the basis of our friendship, which I think a lot of people wouldn't really understand. And
yeah,
now and we haven't even hung out IRL yet. We are like best friends, you
yep.
know, family, and we haven't met IRL really.
It's kind of a beautiful thing though that we can
Yeah.
have that bond and not even be in the same physical space.
Yeah, it's so
That's
interesting that people judge that stuff too. Just like kind of closed-minded people are like,
yeah,
that's not a real friend. It's so
yeah, yeah.
foreign to me.
Or if people ask me, I'm like, "Who's your best friend?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Marston," and they're like, "Oh, how do you know Marston?" I'm like, "Oh, we met gaming." I'm like, "Have you ever met him in person?" I'm like, "Yeah, once briefly for like 10 minutes." I didn't even know him back then,
Yeah,
barely, and like they're like, they sit back a little bit and they're like, "Oh wow, that's interesting."
yeah, you can
Yeah,
just, it's kind of interesting.
yeah.
That's
So yeah,
how I feel about most of the world. I think the viewers will realize. I think that we both, but I'll speak for myself here, is that most of the world seems curiously peculiar in terms of like their virtues and their opinions on intellectual things. And it's just like I kind of always imagine myself like, hmm, that's an interesting way to look at the world. You know,
yeah.
I'm always trying to learn.
Learning's great. And I think that's the beauty of like doing online gaming with other people is you have to talk, you have to communicate. That's part of the whole gaming process, and you learn so much from other people. And what I
Yeah,
learned from you is how much we relate, yet we have such different lives, like upbringings.
yeah,
Yet we connect on a very serious level with like individualistic things. Like we
yes.
share a lot of these like imagination worlds, and the way
Hmm.
that we process information is so similar. So I think like when we met and we were gaming, I'm like, this guy's interesting. This guy's very unique, and
Really, I didn't know you thought that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
no,
I because I never really heard that story. That's
definitely.
cool.
I was so amazed that you kind of like understood what I was saying, because like when we would
Yeah.
play video games, I would be like, instead of like, oh, there's a player over there, I'd be like, oh, there's a drunken baby over there, or like there's a goblin or a gorbin, or like I'll just make up like little words and you'd like get it. You would
Yeah,
laugh and you'd get it.
in my head, I understood. Like it was the same when you would say there's a drunken Gorbin behind us.
Yeah,
Like I knew what you were saying, and which was that there's a player behind us. We would talk like that for the audience who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about. We would just say like random gibberish. and but we would still understand each other, I think, through vocal intonations. But it was more than that, because we would actually understand, like, cognitively, like, oh, there's a player over there, or he
Mm-hmm.
has an Ezekiel's, like, I can imagine her saying he has an Ezekiel's trap. And, like, if we heard that, I would probably understand he has a shotgun, maybe because I had just heard a shotgun blast right after or right before Brandon said he has an Ezekiel's blast. So you
Yeah.
kind of have some idea of what he, and then it was just so funny.
That was cool that you got, because you know what's funny is I like it's not like I'm putting on a performance. It's just I get flustered and I say random shit because I just need to get a point across quickly. But like
Yeah.
when we play with other people and I do that thing, they don't get it. So that's why it was like interesting. Like you got it instant. I'm like,
Yeah.
this guy gets it. This guy gets it.
Yes.
It's awesome. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that like
Yeah,
up
I've
until
noticed that.
now, like you were a digital video game asset to me.
We were in NFTs.
Yeah, you were never a
We were.
physical person. Like I kind of knew what you looked like because I'd seen photos or whatever, but like I didn't know who you were. You were just a figment on the screen.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it is. It's just very interesting. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your parents like try to? Were they strict with video gaming growing up?
Yeah, but that's what made it exciting, right? I think, like, every
Yeah.
child, like, does like what their parents don't want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, seriously, oh my god, I think we talked about this, but, um, like, putting the towel underneath the bed so that they
The
can't
door. Yeah,
see the
yeah,
blue light. Yeah, under the door, so that
yeah.
so that the parents can't see the blue light, like, eking in through the door,
Yeah.
and they think that you're asleep, but really, my mom learned that trick, and then it was just about, like, was she in a good mood, and, like, no, like, just gonna pretend like I was asleep, or, like, was she just tonight gonna, like, break my balls and just get me in
Oh my
trouble?
god.
What
The
what, what about you? What was you?
My parents were very chill about it. Maybe too chill about the gaming thing. Like I spent many hours gaming.
Oh
Like
yeah, I
too many
remember you
hours gaming.
mentioning that.
Yeah, definitely like borderline. Not borderline. I was addicted to video games in high school and middle school. And
Oh,
yeah,
I'd give that kid a hug though.
yeah. Why not? I'm fine. I turned out all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all did those silly little tricks to get more time in. And the best one that we talked about recently was parents wouldn't understand if you're like in an online game, like you can't pause the game. And then we use that trick, even if we were in a single player game where you can pause the game.
Yeah.
We would say, I can't pause it. I can't pause it. I gotta keep it. I gotta finish it. I gotta finish it. We would create these like little like stories and fabrications just to get an
And
extra 10 minutes.
just to extend
Yeah.
the amount of time they had. This reminds me of teenagehood, and I was caught smoking weed. My housekeeper or somebody found my weed stash behind my mirror, and my dad sits me down, and he's like, "Son, I'm not mad," and I started crying, immediately. Like, he was, like, very warm, and
Mm.
then he was like, "But who you are right now is going to decide who you are for the rest of your life." First of all, it's a huge, wild statement, because
Mm.
at that point in time, my dad, I think around 15, 16 years old, went from being Hugh to Hef in high school.
Mm.
And Hef, he's never been called Hugh ever since then. And
Mm.
so and that's when he started becoming a playboy, and when he started becoming a ladies' man, because he had been rejected by a lady in high school. And so for him, it was literally the moment that decided the rest of his life. I think for most men, it's not the case at all.
Mm.
Um, but then he said, this is the moment where you're deciding who you're going to be for the rest of your life. So, basically, he was just saying, don't smoke weed. And it was so hypocritical, because the dude was getting high in his fucking bedroom, in his limos with all the girls. And it's this kind of notion that, like, what you tell your children and how you live your own life are just so fucking dramatically different. Like the way that the world actually works, the way that people feel, like what is going on, you just like lie to your kids basically,
Mm.
or just put on this like weird guilt trip. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Did he have a lot of like pep talks with you like that, where like it was kind of like a giving you like a little bit of a guide or like a lesson kind of thing?
Yeah, for the readers or the writers or the not the readers but the listeners, we've already kind of talked about this, you and I, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll fill y'all in. I
Mm-hmm.
remember one time I was like super depressed. I was going through some shit. I was like 18 years old, just really sad. I went up to him and I said, "Dad, I'm like really sad sometimes. Like, can you? What should I do?" And he was like, "Just stay positive. Look at me." And it's like it was very clear that that was the end of the conversation.
Mm.
I wasn't meant to. That was just supposed to be good enough. And so from that point on, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do things. I can't really listen. I'm not gonna listen to that advice, basically, and I'm not going to treat my son with that same kind of like
Mm.
with that same idea that he did. Do you have
What would
any?
you What would you do
Since
differently
we're
with your
talking
kids?
about parents,
Uh,
I would just talk to them.
be
What
more
what
open.
what would you?
Uh,
But no, now you have to reciprocate. Reciprocate. Tell me a story.
about my dad. Hmm.
No, it's okay. You don't have to if you don't
I don't
want
know.
to.
He uh he was never like the pep talk kind of dad. Still isn't. Um More of like a you're doing great. It was kind of like your dad, how like it was just quick little statements to keep you going. Like if I wanted to show
Yeah,
him
yeah.
something I created, he'd be like, "That's great, pops," and that's it. And I'm not. It's not like I want more or anything. It's just that's just how he communicates. That's okay.
I think
It's
people
different.
will. I think people relate to that. I think a lot of people's dads are emotionally,
I
a
just have to
work in
remind myself,
progress.
like the way that like he spends his whole day working. Like if I show him something, it's probably at the end of the day. He's probably exhausted, and he's like trying to give me as much energy and attention as possible, but it's hard to do that
Yeah,
after
didn't you
you've been
say he was
working all
working
day.
for? Yeah, he worked crazy hours. You were saying.
Yeah, and he still does. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of the archetype. I don't know, dude. It's still not. I don't excuse that stuff, but it is the archetype where like the husband brings home the dinner.
Yeah.
The father brings home the dinner, provides financial support, and also like emotional like calmness. Like they're not supposed to just flip out. Like a strong foundation, and that's about it. Like that's,
With my parents,
anyways.
they wanted, and they still want, it's like a common theme, is they just want everything to be calm, everything to be good. No
Yeah,
troubles. Just let's keep it at a steady pace.
I
Which
think that's nice, right?
I'm grateful for that. Yeah, I mean, there's so
Yeah,
many like ridiculous families where there's just drama and nonsense. Like with my parents, like they're so chill,
yeah,
supportive, and I had a good childhood. I had your typical '90s Spielberg childhood. It was great.
yeah. That's
No
good.
aliens. There were no aliens abducting, but it was good. Ultimately
Yeah.
good.
But what I will say about my childhood, which was really nice, is that my mom was very loving, and
Mm.
so was my grandma. So I was like, I had a core feeling of like unconditional love.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every house needs the mom that just loves. If you don't
Yeah.
have that, I'd imagine it's probably a little rough,
Yeah.
you know.
Agreed.
Because they're supposed to be the sweet spot, the person that you go to in troubled times and they hold you and they take care of you.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not having that, you know.
Yeah. That's Chinua Achebe said that mother is supreme, which is basically that notion of like
Yeah.
they will be there no matter what.
Yeah.
And
No, it's a
that's
beautiful thing.
crazy. That's, yeah. And yeah. I think it's important to have those people in your lives that are there so that you can like take risks in your life and know that like no matter what crazy shit you do, no matter what mistakes you make, no matter what
Mm-hmm.
risks you take, like you have that base. And for me, it's my mom and it's my wife. Like
Mm.
if I can fuck up, it's more my wife now more than anybody. It's like I can take crazy risks and she's there no matter what. I
Yeah.
think that's so important.
Yeah. You need people that support you in that way. Especially with like
Hmm.
us, like I feel like you and I, we're big risk takers. We push boundaries. We go places that are sometimes questionable and maybe difficult
We're
for other
okay with
people to
making
understand.
mistakes too.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
understand that perfection is impossible, so let's just keep going and see where we could get with it. Like for me,
Yeah.
like when we started this doing this podcast, I'm thinking, all right, I need to know everything we're gonna like. I get flustered in my head, but then I just have to remind myself, no, let's just let it go organically. Let's make it beautiful and just have an open conversation for an hour.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Yeah. And we can make mistakes along the way
Yeah, why not?
or figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always
I like
scared of making
mistakes.
mistakes. I'm scared of making mistakes, but when they happen, I look back and I'm like, okay, what's? It's not the end of the world. With
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, did I kind of want to talk about like our world of imagination that we share, the worlds that
Yeah.
we go into in our heads.
Yeah, we are
Do you?
very thinkers. We're thinkers where we're, like most of the time we're in our heads, I think.
Yeah,
And then
I
it's like I
agree.
have to consciously be like here in the moment, like looking at you where it's like, oh,
Right.
like there's a thing happening here, but I think most of the time I find it entertaining to be in my own imagination.
I agree. Do you remember like the first time in your life when you were younger that you went to that world? When you
Yeah.
kind of what was that? What was that
Yeah, yeah.
experience?
In kindergarten, I remember my
Mm.
kindergarten teacher said he daydreamed so much. And then, what do you think about? And I remember saying clouds. I
Mm.
would just go off and dream about clouds.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
For me, I had this experience where I went down to the basement. I must have been like 4 years old, and I was grabbing like a toy or something, and I felt this cold like shiver down my spine, and I felt like something very weird was happening, and then I felt this weird fleshy ball roll down my leg
uh,
in my pants, and I didn't shit myself. It was
uh,
just this weird like alien like feeling down my leg.
yeah.
And I remember thinking at that point, okay, this world is weird.
I
There's something very
love that.
strange about this world. And ever since then, I've always like questioned reality. I've always
Yeah,
questioned my own psyche. I've questioned like everything that I can question. I question it because
yeah.
of weird little things that have happened. I remember I was in Central Park maybe like 2 years ago, and we were coming up this curve in Central Park up, and we saw this row of benches. And I'm like, oh, let's go sit there and eat a snack. I was with my girlfriend, and we saw this empty row of benches, and we get up around the corner, and we look at the benches, and all the benches are full of people eating. Not even 5 seconds ago, they were all empty, and we were about to sit there. We just made a turn, and then they were full, and we both experienced it. We looked at each other, and I'm like, well, those were all empty, right?
Hmm.
And then they were full. And
Yeah,
at that point, and that was later in my life, that was 2 years ago, and I'm like, it only amplifies my like questioning of everything around me,
yeah.
and it
I
that
agree.
that plays into my imagination in my head and all the weird stuff that I think about, and
What I like about that story is that you had somebody to talk to about it.
yeah,
Because it kind of gets not. I'm not a big fan of like when it's like, well, are you even real? I get I
yeah,
don't like that stuff because I get that I'm biased, but I just like I like knowing that I have you to go on this journey with, or my
Sure.
wife to go on this journey with. Like, but yeah, it's wild. I
Yeah.
and Anais, I have stories like that. Like I'll very frequently, I'll be reading a book and I'll just kind of come to, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Mm.
where am I? What is this shit? Like, it's just weird to be in the present moment in this world and to like kind of come to and almost be conscious like of just how bizarre shit is sometimes, like living is,
Yeah.
and that's like a psychedelic experience of just like even reading a book or just looking at things.
Mm.
It can be, you like, I can go back into a familiar place where I'm talking to you and I feel happy, but I can also like, if I want to, I can like almost shift reality or come to a from a different lens and just be like, this is what the fuck. It's weird,
Yeah.
but
I wish people, including myself, would step back more often and realize that everything that we're experiencing is so strange.
yeah,
Like,
it's
and we all
weird.
just kind of blindly go along with this whole experience.
Hmm.
Why? Like that. The question of why are we doing this all? Not even why are we here? Why are we doing this all? What like why do like what's the purpose of this all? That's what keeps me up at night, like thinking like what is the answer? And I think the beautiful thing is there is no answer. Like it's just this infinite question of what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because it's always evolving.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I also just like, I like the way my life is. Like, I like learning about comics. I like learning, like, I like my routine, as they say. And I like the way that I learn in these specific, perspectives. And if I want to, I can go outside of that with like mushrooms, or just, I don't even have to be high to think
Mm-hmm.
like that. But there is a part of me that finds it very comforting, just like, and I'm happy. I'm basically like happy with like the way things are most of the time without having to, you know, be like, oh my God, we're all going to die. And we're not, like, that's a weird one. It's like, what happens when we die? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what if nothing happens? You know, stuff like that is fun to think about too. But
It is fun because it's you could come in it from so many different perspectives, and it's always great to hear like what other people think. Like that's I love asking questions to you about like those kinds of things, like what happens after you die, or like where were we before we were here? Because
yeah,
we all come at it from a different lens, and that's so exciting. I love that
yeah,
we all have different because each perspective is real and true because you believe it.
agreed,
Why not?
agreed.
For me, like I've taught myself how to get to those like psychedelic worlds,
Yeah,
well, without even touching any sort of you know psychedelic. All I
yeah,
need to do for me is like step into the shower, lower the lights, and just kind of like let myself go into that world.
yeah.
It's about
What do you
being
think when you feel that world? Because it might be a different experience than my, like for me, when I go into
probably
that
is
world,
different.
it's I can't exactly say what it's like, but an idea of what it's like is, maybe there's something in the spirit realm guiding me
Hmm.
and talking to me through books, or that could be it. Another one is I can create everything. That's my mind is what's creating reality. That's another one. Those two. What about you?
For me, it's a lot of like world building. I build a lot of worlds when I'm in there,
Hmm.
and I close my eyes, or I can even have my eyes open. I kind of like see it form in front of me, and I create storylines in there, and it's almost kind of like a second life when I step in the shower. I'm
Well,
able to
that's
kind of
that's
go to this
different than
world.
the. That's like a different world. You're like building incredible fantasy worlds there.
it's building fantasy worlds, but it does tie into this world of the fantasy of our reality, our current
Yeah.
world that we're currently in talking in. Like it ties into there because
Yes.
it's an extension. It's almost like a plug-in or an add-on to, like, I feel like I'm cheating the code when I'm in the shower and going into these things.
Mm,
And I could just do it by like really focusing. It's almost like a form of meditation, I suppose, but with a different purpose. It's really to kind of like explore and get into a weird place
mm,
ultimately. And I've been doing that since I was little. I feel like a lot of the things that we do, we don't realize we were doing it since we were young because we're doing it in a different way now that we're older. We've trained ourselves in
wow.
different ways. Like when I was younger,
Yes.
I would do it in bed before I go to sleep, just thinking about something. I would kind of fall into that world. And
It's
now I
wild how
know,
we demarcate like childhood. Like that's the same brain
yeah,
as we are now, But you're right. I've been brainstorm. Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah. No, I think our childhood represents everything of who we are now in a lot
Mm,
of ways. Whether it be subtle or harsh, I think the experiences that we create when we're younger are what define us and carry us later in life. And the traits that we have when we're younger, we carry them on, but just in different ways.
yeah. Well said. I think I still now what you said. It reminded me that how much I used to fucking daydream in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we all kind of, I
Fuck, I
think,
loved my childhood, dude. That also just made me realize how much I fucking loved being a kid.
hmm,
That was fun as fuck. And yeah,
what are you
good times.
visualizing when you say that?
Just like the comfort of home, of feeling like safe. I think now, like in my life, I'm like it feels. Uh, I don't know. It just feels like less. When you have parents, you feel like nothing can really fuck with you. And when you're an adult and I'm taking risks like artistically and fucking Los Angeles is like going down the tube, it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
mm, I have to protect myself now.
It's interesting how we mentally like comfort ourselves during those weird times, and we kind of regress to our childhood.
Yeah.
Like when I was having a shitty day the other day, and I thought about, I think I texted you. I was like, "Do you remember the smell of like hot plastic coming out of your Xbox?"
Yeah.
And the when you turn it on, and then you just the and you just know
Yeah.
you're about to go to your safe space.
Yeah.
And like I thought
I
of that
celebrate
smell.
that, by the way. Like I
Oh yeah,
consciously like regress all the time. I fucking collect Pokemon cards. I collect comic books. I play like I'm still very much in touch, and I love it. Like with that stuff.
likewise. I don't see anything wrong in
No.
diving into that world and,
Uh-uh.
you know, doing what you enjoyed as when you were your happiest. Why not?
Yes.
You know, we live in a sick world, so why not have fun?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Chief.
This was great.
This was really great.
I'm looking forward to more conversations in the future
Me too.
and
Would you
learning
like to
more.
have more conversations in the future?
Yeah,
Me
yeah,
too.
of course. This is fun. All right, guys. We'll see you next
All right.
week.
I'm not gonna leave the session.
Yeah, don't, because we lost our other fucking
Yeah, we
episode. So.
lost it. I'm just gonna stay here.